Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Work and Study Smarter, boosting your productivity. And today we're going to be talking about organise your work and your study life. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Right, so welcome back to another episode of my brand new YouTube exclusive series on Work and Study Smarter, boosting your productivity. I'm Faith Brunel. I am a student who's just graduated with a bachelor's in politics from King's College London, and I'll be undertaking a master's next year, January, at BPP University to complete the Law Foundation Masters, which is basically a foundation course in 1 year, which is what would have been done with the LLB in the BA level of 3 years, or however many years it may have been, and condensing that into 1 year as a conversion following on from a non-law degree. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So I thought today, let me actually bring together my collective expertise as a student who's someone who has studied for many years. Actually, for most of my adult life, I've been studying either at secondary school or being at college or university, and I'm going on to master's level. So I thought, let me actually take a lot of my study skills and tips and actually give them to my listeners, to my subscribers on YouTube, and to my non-subscribers and those who may want a bit of help with time management, productivity, working and studying smarter, not necessarily studying harder, but studying smarter, which is something that we have to really understand, in order to be as productive as we can possibly be. So here I am today, everybody. You can see me. Let's get stuck into it. So in today's episode, we're really going to talk about organising your work and study life in terms of study materials, managing tasks, and really creating efficient study schedules and goals. We talked a little bit last week about, last week's episode was titled Productivity 101 for Students. So we really delved into the art of time management, productivity. We delved into goal setting principles, for example, SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, etc. And we really talked about that as well. We talked about different ways to manage your time. I mentioned the Pomodoro method, by which I use a company called Life App for, which is a virtual online platform that provides that kind of stimulation, if you're in a cafe or wherever you may be, with natural sounds as well to help you get into that work and study mode. And I also actually talked a little bit about Time Camp. I talked about a diary from a company called Learn Your Products, this diary that I actually showed you on Amazon. I now have it in front of me, which has a positive affirmation, destined to succeed, which is the 2023 Diary Planner and Diary. So this diary will actually end in December, and I'll get another one from the company in January. So today, what we're going to do, we're going to actually delve deep, as I said before, in organising your work and your study life for maximum productivity and success. So this episode is really applicable for you if you're a student juggling coursework and, working part-time, for example, and personal development. These strategies are really going to help you to achieve your goals more efficiently than ever before. And so what we're going to do, actually, we're going to break this down into three key parts. So the first one is managing your work and study materials. The second one is task management. And the third and final one is efficient study schedule. So we're going to delve right into each of those today. As a student, I have had to really manage my study life. I've had to really balance it in terms of, working part-time, as I mentioned in the intro. If you're a student who's struggling to balance your studies and your work, I can really help you with that, because actually when I was studying or reading politics at King's College London, I worked at Selfridges and Oxford Street during the Christmas period. I found that I had to really balance what I was doing with my studies, and so I had to kind of figure out what I was actually doing and what needed to be done, what was important, what was a need, what was a want, still spend time with family and friends and still have time for myself, still be able to podcast, still be able to go to church, still be able to do everything I wanted to do, on top of things I had to do as part of my degree, which is mandatory. So that's what we're going to talk about. So let's talk about managing your study materials. Now, study materials are very important because they're materials that help you to actually they're note-taking methods. They could be physical, like a diary here. They could be digital. These really help you to streamline your research, streamline your tasks and goal setting, streamline all of the work that you get done within a particular period. And you really discover ways to make your studying or your working more effective, more fun, more enlightening, and getting more done within a set period of time. That's why I've named this series about the work and study smarter. It's not about studying harder, it's about studying smarter. When we study smarter, we actually understand a bit more depth about, when we're studying smarter, we're using the time more effectively to get more done within a given period of time. And so actually, you're saying goodbye really to the chaos of scattered notes and textbooks and not knowing what you've done, not knowing where you have to do, where you have to pick it up and where you have to leave off as well. And I think that's really important, because when you can organise yourself, I think so. One tip I give you for management is I'd say really find a good management system. Now, for me, what I like to do is I like to keep, let's say I have a module on climate change and a module on the Cold War. I like to keep those materials separate. I like to get a folder, like a binder folder, and separate it with page separators, and actually think about and label the modules. And then within the modules, there's actually subtopics for the 10 weeks that we were doing studying. So I then separated that for where I was going to be doing, and it actually helped me to do that, because let's say I had 5 modules, for example, and then within each module there was 10 weeks. I would have to say to myself, okay, today I'm going to work till from 10 till 8, for example, but I still got to study as well. So how can I fit that in? Can I fit it in during breaks? Can I fit it in early morning, in the evening? And part of managing your study materials is actually thinking about the way you study, because your study space and your workspace is really important. You know, I know that, for example, when I was in my secondary school, I'll take a sip of water. When I was in secondary school, I was actually advised to not study in my bedroom, because the teacher was saying that it can really put you off. It can kind of like make you feel a bit, it can confuse you, because you sleep in that room, you relax in that room. It can confuse you when it comes to working and studying. However, I actually, on the contrary, for me, I find it works according to what I'm doing. And actually, I made like a nice little office in my room as well, with a desk and a monitor, etc. So for me, it works. Now, for somebody else, it might not work. Whereas for me, I like the library, I like cafes as well, but it's all about what I'm doing. If I'm doing a dissertation, I'll go to the library instead of a cafe, because a cafe, obviously you can talk, it's more it's a different kind of setting. Libraries are quieter for quiet independent study, whereas in the library you can do group sessions as well. So if you're at university and you have to do any group sessions, there are group study rooms that you can book. I know at King's we could book study rooms as well in both the Franklin Wilkins Library and the Morn Library, which is where I was. Especially in the Franklin Wilkins Library as well. There were like little study pods as well. There's some in the Morn Library, and they're like study pods to yourself that actually blocks out noise, so you can make conversation. You can so you can make calls. You can actually do Zoom calls or online classes or whatever it may be, or meetings you have to do on campus as well. Yeah. So that is really about kind of managing your study material. I think really what's important when you go to university is not to feel too overwhelmed. It's easy to worry and stress, but you just have to know that you can do it. And I think what's really important as well from the outset is organisation, because planning prevents poor performance. It's an acronym that I will always use. Now, for me, a diary is really, really important. I'd say effective note taking is important. So actually, like what I talked about in the event we had last week was about the call down method, there's mapping methods, linear note taking as well, which is really, really important because they're all different as well. And actually, I think it's important to talk about as well. Let's start off with number one. Number one is having a diary. Having a diary is my number one tip. It doesn't have to be a physical copy of a diary, because I also use my calendar on my MacBook and on my phone as well. So you can use that. You can use a diary, but a diary is important because just how a university would give you a schedule, it tells you where you have to be, what commitments you've got, etc. So this diary is really good. Affirmation on the back, QR code here you can scan. When you open up this particular diary, I've got my name as well, talking about a lovely quote from Gilbert Rand from out there, which talks about your actions affect your future, your habits determine your success, which is the key quote for today. Calendar for 2023, and then year at a glance, 2023 vision board. So that's the first one, and then the second one is note taking, how you make your notes. Now, in first year I used to use OneNote, but then I found in second and third year it was easy to use my iPad, or it was easy to use a Word document that is separated. I put like the Word documents into folders. So first year I used OneNote, second year I used Notion, third year I used Word document. In first year I used OneNote, Microsoft OneNote, and that was great. In second year I used Notion, third year I moved to Word documents, and each of them helped me in different ways. It's just really about what I was feeling at the time. Third year was a bit more pressureful for me personally, and I felt that there was more content. I had dissertation, I had other modules as well that were quite content heavy and quite a lot of reading and requirements as well. So I needed the Word documents to really delve into it. It doesn't mean that I didn't use OneNote, it doesn't mean I didn't use, I didn't use Notion as much in third year, to be honest. I used that more in second year. When I got my iPad, I used more notes, like Apple Notes. I didn't really use GoodNotes personally, so I'm not really a fan of GoodNotes, but it, you know, could help you. So I say that the top ones out there for an iPad is GoodNotes. Just try and let me know. For me, I just stuck with OneNote. I was pretty happy with how it was working out because I could use my Apple Pencil and do a little bit of doodling here and there. In terms of my actual, so let me break this down. So when it came to actually classes and timetabling, I actually synced the King's timetable to my Apple Calendar. That was really, really helpful. Number two was I actually, in terms of like writing down my tasks and work to do, I started off in first year or second year using Microsoft to-do list. When it kind of, after a while, I wasn't really a fan of it. So I actually moved to having a physical diary, or I moved to kind of like writing it somewhere else on Notion, and I kind of like organised my life on Notion in the sense of my studies and then all the tasks I had to do, all the modules. That was my second year experience. As I said, you have to really choose what works for you. It's very subjective. So what works for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for me. It's like that. So I try everything I'm suggesting and just really pick out what works for you. For myself, I now use as a as an upcoming master's student, I will be going back to Notion because I love Notion. I've actually got a Notion plan, an education plan, and I'm going to be delving into that. I'll show you that maybe another time. I want to just give a shout out to Easlo. I got some templates from Easlo, and it was really, really helpful to me to actually organize my Notion. So yeah, diary. Moving on to the other part of kind of managing your study materials, it's about how you take notes. First of all, the big question is, do you handwrite or do you type? I type. I do not handwrite notes, I type. Why? Because sometimes when I'm in a rush of a lecture, my handwriting will not look that good. Sometimes it's hard to actually get what I was saying back then. I do not handwrite because sometimes my writing, I'm in a rush in a lecture and I handwrite it and I come back and I'm like, what did I say at that particular point? And I'm a very fast typer. I can type without looking. And that's not showing off. I'm just saying, like, I can type without looking. So for me, I can literally be staying at the lecture, slides and typing. And that's what really I prefer. And then once you decide what you're going to do, it's the style. I go for linear style. I love linear. Corner method I tried. It didn't really quite work for me, but I still like it in terms of a note-taking method. I love mapping. I love mapping, especially for essays as well. Breaking down essay topics and content and scholarship. I love that. And then really, that's really it. So when you're thinking about managing study materials, it's about managing your time in terms of like when you're going to study. So managing your time is in terms of when you're going to study. Okay, when are you going to get your stuff done? Then it's in terms of like how, it's kind of how you're going to make those notes and how you're going to make your make the notes in terms of your tasks, Notion, to do, etc. And then we're thinking about the style after we thought about where we're going to make the notes. And those are the key points there for me that I would personally recommend for any student of any age doing any subject. And obviously, like, different subjects will have different requirements, so you have to just specify that for yourself as well. So yeah, if you notice my voice is slightly going because I'm literally getting over a cold. I had a cold last week, but I'm literally back up and running now. So yeah, so let's move on to task management. Task management, again, important, links into management of study materials. This is really thinking about how to conquer and to complete and to get your tasks done effectively. So really, it's talking about task management systems that keep you on top of assignments, deadlines, responsibilities, to really give you a more organised and stress-free kind of approach to your workload. So I'd say for me, if I'm thinking about my tasks, it's really about thinking about efficient to-do lists, writing a to-do list that includes a deadline. Don't just say essay A. Say essay due the 5th of May, 2024, for example, and really specify what's needed. I'd say deadlines and prioritization. If you have a dissertation that's due for January, let's say where we are now, we're now in September. If you have a dissertation that's due for January, but you have an essay due for October, do the essay for October, but still make progress towards the dissertation because it's a massive topic. This is someone who did a dissertation myself, so I know what to do. I literally know about the stresses of that. And then we're talking about like task management systems as well. So like when you wake up on when you wake up on a daily basis, what do you do? What is your routine? What is your structure of the day? What do you do first? Do you work first? Do you relax first? What do you do? Do you use every minute of every day to kind of get something done? And for myself, living in London, I used to live in London, and I found that reading on the tube or listening to a podcast on the tube was really, really effective for me, for my study, and for my revision, but also for like what I retained in my mind and in my brain, the brain retention of kind of facts, information and knowledge, going towards like essays and stuff like that, and exams. So I listen to a range of podcasts, and as a podcaster myself, I love podcasts, and I love to support other podcasters as well, doing what they do best, and doing, their vocation and, talking about topic. In particular, I love climate change podcasts, because this ties into your task management system. I was doing a climate change module back in second year, and I found that listening to climate change like podcasts and something that was really beneficial. I know I used to listen to TED Climate a lot. I used to listen to Skycast, the climate one as well. Really, really helpful. And really, like, when you actually, have effective task management, it reduces your stress and it kind of improves organisation to that as well. So in the next section, we're going to talk about efficient study schedules. So for the final section, we're going to talk about mastering the art of efficient study schedules. So study schedules are key for a student. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should wake up at 6 a.m. and study for 10 hours. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying is that you have to really understand the essence of time management, really talking about how it's a pivotal role in your academic and professional pursuits. And once you've managed it well, you will actually excel further in your studies. I definitely say that, how you use your time directly affects your productivity, motivation, overall well-being as well. And mental health is really important. That's why, as I mentioned in my first episode, so we had a first event with the University of Birmingham, speakers from the University of Birmingham, Logos, Westminster, IC, etc., and the Study Buddy, etc. And the keynote speaker was Dr. Dominic Thompson, who is a multi-award-winning GP and TEDx speaker, who talked about prioritising mental health and navigating through the mindscape. So when you're actually understanding, when you're actually crafting your study schedule, it's really important because you have to bring in other modules. You have to take into account other modules, other commitments, other odd weeks, odd days. Days that you might feel tired or you might get unwell and stuff like that. Because I know for myself, last week I was unwell, and I had to cancel a lot of interviews because I just wasn't ready. And the podcast and my voice I had to do my voice, and I had a sore throat and my voice was going. So I had to actually prioritize that, but it wasn't too bad because it was fine because I literally knew how to navigate my time and use my time effectively while still unwell to do other tasks towards my business. For example, planning today's episode, or planning my series, or doing social media content and creation. So it's really about crafting a study schedule that is really resilient, really resistant, but also really a study schedule that is that will not affect you too much if something goes wrong. Something that's really, really efficient as well and widely applicable. So yeah, you have to allocate time for different projects, subjects, and responsibilities. And then really there's like a science behind it as well, because, topics like, spaced repetition and active recall and Pomodoro techniques as well, they really actually help to enhance your memory, retention, and comprehension. And you gain the skills to make every study session count, because I know that in terms of the Pomodoro method, we spoke about the Pomodoro method last week in terms of what I used to like, and in one of the episodes I talked about how it was coined by Francesco Cirillo, and talked about that's effective time management. But in terms of the science of it, spaced repetition actually is talking about kind of it's about understanding why some information sticks to your mind better than others. And active recall is like continually to remind yourself of information that you've explored. But really, it's about maintaining that work-life study balance. Like, I think that as a student, it's important to have fun, to have like hobbies, things that you do for fun, spending time with family and friends and loved ones, and having time for yourself away from your studies. For example, for myself, as an upcoming master's student, I will be podcasting, having business meetings, spending time with friends and family, podcasting, as I said before. I'm learning French as well. I speak a little bit of Spanish, and just doing kind of things like that as well. And, you know, watching movies, and you do Bible study, go to church, and engaging with other things like that as well. It's something that I like to do. So you should find something that you want to do in your spare time. And finally, really, hopefully, like now you've actually found, you know, hopefully you've actually been equipped with a valuable arsenal of knowledge and tools. And so we've reached the end of the episode, and hopefully you have actually a valuable arsenal of knowledge and tools and ideas on how to actually be effective in your study sessions as well. So today we talked about really, we talked about organising your work and study life, and hopefully today you actually will walk away with an arsenal full of knowledge of tools and have the confidence to transform or to develop your study work and routines, really enhancing your productivity and achieving your goals with greater efficiency. So this episode hopefully can be the gateway to that, that opportunity, that journey to becoming more organised and more efficient. And so stay tuned in. Another episode will drop next Tuesday at 12 p.m. British Summertime BST. All the best, and join us next time as we uncover the secrets of effective time management and study scheduling. Your journey to success starts here. I am Faith B, and I'm signing off.